Okay, hi everyone. I do apologize for the craziness of this week. It's not really what I planned on or what I intended. The ice this morning, which when I went out at 12:40 for my COVID test, it was fine. But if Dr. Myers is canceling things, it seems like it's a big deal. So I went ahead and canceled our class for today. But I'm going to go ahead and go through chapter 4, affordances and domestication. All 3 days worth, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, will be in this video. It won't take 3 hours to watch this video, of course, because we're not going to have in-class discussions. I'm not going to have to stop and pause for things. I will share my screen so you'll see the slides still. And if you have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to reach out. I wanted to give you an update on my current COVID situation. I am quarantined right now, and I put that in quotations because the university has called me like 4 times today. And because I stand at least 6 feet away from all students at all times, typically, even when we're chatting after class, my exposure that I got the email about is considered low risk. So it's probably not an actual exposure. I am going to quarantine this week just to keep everybody safe and healthy. I got my test today. I have to get another one on Wednesday, and then next week we'll be back in action. So I do apologize. This week is kind of stupid with all of this, but it's better to be safe than sorry. If you feel that you have any sort of exposure, whether it was been from talking to me or other students or what have you, please do not hesitate to reach out to the university and reach out to all your instructors. We're just trying to keep everybody safe. If you have to miss a couple classes because of quarantine, like, I will work with you. Don't stress about that. That's nothing. Okay. We can always Zoom you in for class. It's not a big deal. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. We're going to go here and share. All right. So everybody can see my screen, I think. You can still see me in the corner if you need that. But we're going to talk about affordances and domestication this week. There was a scheduled reading discussion prompt for Friday. You didn't know that, but I knew that because I select the weeks to do them. Everybody will get full points for those. I am not going to have you do them and email them in. And we will review this stuff before the exam and all of that. That way you don't have to worry about it. Okay. So affordances, let's start with that first. An affordance perspective is going to focus on interaction between participants and the environment, right? So it's not just, hey, I'm communicating with my friend, but it's also, I'm communicating with my friend, but there's all these outside things going on around us, right? So maybe I'm focused on talking to my friend, but we're standing outside in the cold. So I might be shivering or kind of moving around because I'm cold, right? So with the theory of affordances is what's going to be important isn't really the constraints of the medium, but the actions that we take as participants within the medium. Okay. So we know that even with FaceTime, it's a pretty close second best to face, right? But there's still some strategic actions we take. Depending on who you're FaceTiming, you might stand by a window or by a light that's going to show your good side. It's going to give you good face. We think about those. It's not necessarily a constraint, but it's something that we take specifically when we're thinking about using that medium, right? You can think about how you text a specific person, or if you've had an ex who takes forever to respond to you, or maybe a current relational partner who takes forever to respond to you, and you're like, I'll text back at 4 o'clock, right? That's a strategic action through that medium because they took forever. So you're going to give yourself some time to respond as well. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about in this entire video. So an affordance is an opportunity provided by an environment that is perceived and acted on by a participant within that medium. Okay, so think about the environment that we live in right now, right? Our culture, our country is so chaotic because of coronavirus. And there are other countries across the world that are like, what is America doing? Because they don't have the same issues that we have right now. But an affordance is the fact that we have cell phones to text people. We can Skype in to class. We can watch lecture videos. We don't physically have to be in be in the same environment in order to communicate. Okay? So currently, I'm quarantining. I have my computer, I have Zoom, so I go ahead and record this, and it's perceived or not perceived, it's provided to me based on the situation, and I'm acting upon it as a willing participant to communicate using that medium. All right, so let's talk about some affordances of, or requirements of affordances. And I'm gonna move this a little bit. You probably saw me move that. But this is Requirements of Affordances by Gibson in 1979. So there are three requirements for something to be an affordance. One, an environmental opportunity. Two, the user perception of the opportunity. And three, the user acts on the opportunity. So all three of these things have to be met in order for it to be an actual affordance. So an environmental opportunity. Um, Before this coronavirus hit, I mean, we would use lecture halls as regular classrooms, but now the lecture hall, the university, this is an environmental opportunity, right? We have to sit one seat apart. We can have 50 people in one class, although that's kind of pushing it, but we could have 50 people in one class and still have them one seat apart. So there's a seat in between every person, right? That's the environmental opportunity. The user has to perceive this as an opportunity, and therefore actually use it, right? So, okay, we have these lecture halls. Let's go ahead and schedule, instead of making 5 sections of the same course, let's do 2 or 3 sections. We're going to eliminate 2 of the sections that we would have had to create had we not had these lecture hall. So there's that perception, and then acting on it. This picture down here, you can see it's the ropes, right? Um, think about when you go to an amusement park. When we are waiting in line for a ride, we see these ropes and these like paths and mazes that are created for us because it was an environmental opportunity that the creators of that ride, of that theme park, the owners, whoever saw as an opportunity and then acted on it. Could you imagine what it would be like trying to just get on a ride as a free for all for everybody? We think we'd be really good at that, but we're not. So, all three of these requirements need to be met in order for something to be an affordance and aid in our communication. So let's talk about some affordances in CMC. There are 4 types. We've got technological, group, social, and communication, and we're going to talk about all 4 of those. Sorry. Sorry, my friend called me. Sorry about that. So we've got technological, group, social, and communication affordances, and all 4 of those we're going to talk more about as we go through these slides, but just to provide a couple examples of each. So technological, visual anonymity, right? You don't have to show your face. Text-based, asynchronous. Right now we're doing asynchronous. Group is, there's individual, but there's also collective, right? And we'll talk about that. So you providing a PDF versus Google Drive. Social, so visibility and persistence, and then communication. So network informed associating, meta voicing, and we'll get into all of those. So you can always scroll back, screenshot this slide if you need to. All right, so technological affordances, sorry. Networked, everyone is connected, and This means that we're able to communicate wherever we are, however we like, right? So I have friends that will not talk on the phone whatsoever. They like to text. So if I have something that I need to tell them, I text them. Um, my grandpa, who's not technologically savvy, he bought a cell phone but doesn't know how to use text. I don't know why they got him an iPhone. I really don't. So he likes to talk on the phone. So because we are always connected, this technological affordance lets us communicate how we like. We can pick and choose. And there are some people who just don't care, like text me, call me, FaceTime me, whatever. It's not a big deal. Um, but networked is really cool. Next, we get visual anonymity. So this is more equal status, better peer-to-peer discussions, and increased creativity. And this is because we don't visually see who the other person is on the other side of the screen. Um, there used to be chat rooms where your identity was kept private and you just talked to people. Um, and they were all online, of course. But if you're working on a project with somebody from another country, another department, another state, whatever, you have more equal status because I don't know who you are and you don't know who I am. And so we're able to just talk to each other. We're able to just bounce ideas off of each other because we don't visually see the other person. That doesn't hinder our communication. Okay. Think of shows like The Masked Singer. We don't know who they are. And I've never watched that show. I've just seen clips here and there, but we don't know who they are. And so that makes a big difference on who we vote out. Okay. Same with like The Voice. They don't see who the singer is until they press the button that they want to work with them. Okay. Text-based. It is equal status. There is control over conversations and editability. Okay, so again, this goes back to we might know who we're texting or know the name of the person we're texting, but you don't have any more power in this conversation than I do. And that gives us control over the conversations, both parties. We're also able to edit what we want to say to the other person. So it's a pretty cool feature as well. And then asynchronous, so editability, time to think, better messages. Okay. This picture over here, so January 18th, Daryl waved at you at 8:06. At 9:15, you can like that. And then on the 21st, you waved at each other, right? You get time to actually think about, what do I want to say? How do I want to express this? This can come in very handy when talking to peers or significant others or our crushes or whoever, maybe even our boss, because you can construct the perfect message to where you get your point across without maybe sounding negative or bitchy or adding more drama to it, unless that's your goal, and then have at it. Okay, so those are technological affordances. If you have any questions on those, pause the video here and then shoot me an email. All right, we have group affordances. Oh my gosh. Oh, sorry, I had to stretch my leg out. I've got really bad hips, and so when I sit with my legs cross-legged for too long, they hurt really bad. So group affordances. Let's start with the individual. So we focus on individual abilities of group members, and this allows them to offer their expertise when needed. Okay, so you see the picture. I'm going to send you this literature on the topic that we're discussing, right? That one person has expertise in that. I have a friend who I work with at the restaurant, and she's in a grad program, and she just Snapchatted me and was like, hey, can I send you this paper to look at I just want you to look at my reference page just to make sure I'm on the right track. I read the book, but I don't know that I'm 100% getting it. I have the expertise. That's not to say that I am an expert in APA, because I'm not, but I did go through a doctoral program where that was shoved down my throat. So I have a little more expertise than her. So I looked it over. I also sent her some helpful links that say, hey, this might help you out next time you're writing a paper, right? Um, I'm sure you are better at some things than people in your friends group, and they might rely on you, whether it's to know things about sports or school or, um, I don't know, animals, any topic, right? You have that expertise. So you're able to add things to the conversation that other people can't. Okay. And this isn't an all the time thing, right? If you're in a group working on things and they're constantly like, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do that? Hey, can you do that? They might just be being lazy at that point. But that is an individual perspective of the group affordance. Next is the collective. And this is where individuals divide up tasks, multitask, and bounce between projects and platforms. Okay. So I'm sure we've all done group work. We all understand Google Drive. I'm going to see this next slide really quick. Sorry. Um, for a second, I thought it was a double slide. But we've all done group work, right? So maybe while you're working on your part, somebody else is working on their part. We split up parts of the paper. You're going to do the introduction. You're going to do the conclusion. You're going to do case study number 3. I want you to do 1. I'll do number 2, whatever it is, right? We're going to split it up. We can also start working in person together. All of us come together, we meet at Panera, and we start working. Well, that's what it would have been before COVID. I don't know if people really work in public anymore. But maybe we're going to switch it to Google Drive, right? So I've got my part done. I'm going to create a Google Drive, a Google document. And on that Google document, I'm going to put my part, you put your part above it or wherever it goes in the chain of command, and let's edit it together as a group. Or we can all meet via Zoom. Okay, so that is the collective. We divide up the tasks. We're bouncing between different projects. We're bouncing between different platforms. And then group affordances, the shared, this is all about access. So everyone has everything. And this means that we put everything in the Google Doc, or we created a Google Drive folder for our group project. And that way we all have access to everything that everybody has done. And this is a really cool feature because beforehand, before Google Drive and all this stuff, we didn't really have the means to do that. So we'd have to get together the morning before class or the night before, get everything printed and put together how we wanted, and then go from there. My last semester of classes that I had to take in my PhD, I was in a group. We created an intervention program for children whose parents were using opioids, right, for the state of West Virginia, specifically Kanawha County, because that's pretty bad county for opioid use, not in general. I don't know much about the county. Sorry, I don't mean to insult anybody from there. There were 4 of us in a group. We all signed up based on times we could meet, how we could do things. All of our 4 matched up, and one member of our group just didn't show up. She had access to everything, but she didn't do her part. And so it was really frustrating as those group members. And so with group affordances like shared access, that makes it really easy. So if you can't meet with our group, at least you can still scroll through and see everything. Okay. Again, if you have questions over this, pause the video, type it in an email, and then send it on over. Next, let's get to social affordances. So this is the visibility aspect or perspective. This is the number of people who actually have access to a message, right? In your eCampus right now, you could go in and send an email to the whole class. You just go to the sidebar where it says WVU tools, and then you scroll down to send email. You could send it to the whole class. You can also customize it to, I'm going to send this to just the students, not the teacher. And I've had students who have done that in the past because they didn't want to seem like they were bad students. but they needed something and they didn't want me to know, which, like, it's fine. I don't judge you if you don't have access to something. Like, reach out to me, I'll help you out. But they sent emails to the entire class. Okay. So we're able to customize who can see things on, um, nope, not going to sneeze. I thought I was going to sneeze that time. We can customize who can see things online, right? On Facebook. People you have blocked, they can't see anything you post. But you can also tailor your message to, I want to send this to my friends only. I want to send this to my family only, whoever. We can customize those things. We can also customize our about us information on who can see what. So that's pretty cool. The persistence perspective. How long is the message accessible for, right? How long are we giving them to see it? Okay. I don't think that picture is supposed to be there. Sorry about the picture. I don't think that's supposed to be there. Anyways, with persistence, think about apps like Snapchat, right? Just recently, they got, I mean, not super recently, but like a year or two ago, they made it so you could see messages indefinitely until you clicked on the screen, right? When Snapchat first became a thing when I was an undergrad, you could only see it for 3 seconds max. So imagine all the things that we couldn't see because we couldn't see them longer than 3 seconds. You also couldn't screenshot things back then. It like would be a black screen, it wouldn't work. It was very weird. Um, but how long are these messages accessible for? Okay. Okay, so that was the end of the social affordances. Again, pause if you need to, shoot me an email. Meta voicing. So this is an ongoing conversation commenting on the presence of others. So retweeting and liking. I think there's a note on this one. Okay, so this is explicitly responding to anyone else's videos or messages. So we see this video of Rebecca Black Friday. I'm sure you all remember this. This was a comment that she wrote responding to the people who had been, I believe, rude to her throughout her life because of that, or, made fun of her because of it, right? So she responded to it. And then you have 464,000 people liking it and 56,000 people were talking about it. Okay, so this is meta voicing. This is the conversation. Think about our political climate right now, right? You see things on Twitter and there are threads. People will say something and then maybe they've got more to say. And to each tweet, somebody else is commenting, they're retweeting, they're liking, and sorry. So they're retweeting and commenting, and this is an ongoing conversation. They're talking about the presence of others, right? Oh, this is a really good point. But, and that conversation is continuing. Okay. Moving forward is the triggered attending. Okay. So this is staying a part of the conversation, but remaining pretty uninvolved until later. Okay. So we can talk about things that are going on. We can talk about them currently. We can talk about them at any time. But maybe there's an event that's happening, right? So this picture really signifies creating an event. So you make your title, you set the reminder, and you set it. Okay. So you are aware of everything that's going on. You're kind of lurking with it. You're not necessarily a part of the conversation until you decide that you want to be a part of it. Okay. There's a video of a guy when Britney had her meltdown in 2007, right? This guy's name's Chris. He was on Daniel Tosh at one point. If that is still a thing, I don't know. Or if you liked that or watched that. Um, but he saw all the comments about Britney, saw everything that was going on, and made this viral video where he's in a tent or under a blanket, something, and he's crying and screaming, "Leave Britney alone," right? So he remained relatively uninvolved in the conversation until he decided that he didn't want to anymore. Okay. There's network informed associating. So this is the ability to engage in conversations of with a broad network and a disbursement of individuals across the globe. Okay, so we can have conversations with people who are halfway across the world. I think it was this class we talked about 90 Day Fiance. I recently just started watching it again. Um, I'm on the season 90 days or the season before the 90 days, that one or whatever with Ed and Rosemary and oh god, it's wild. But one of the girls is in a relationship with another girl. She's in New York and the other's in Australia. And like, we're able to do that. We're able to have these full on conversations, even though you're wherever you are. And that is really cool because we can associate with this broad network without physically being there at all. Okay. There is the generative role taking. So we alternate leadership roles and behaviors more easily because we don't have as rigid social structures, right? So what this means is if you're working in a group, whether it is for your job or for school, we can alternate our leadership roles. Okay. Um, we can try on different leadership styles, what works. We could try somebody else in the leadership role. Maybe that works. So that's what's really cool about communication affordances is we don't have to have one set style that we use throughout an entire project, job, interaction. We can bounce ideas off of each other and sorry, we can bounce ideas off of each other and have many leadership roles or have many different styles of leadership. Okay. So last, no, we're going to skip this slide. I thought I took this one out before we started. So we're, oh wait, no, I didn't. I did take the slide out that I wanted to. So sorry about this. So we have hidden and false affordances, wasted affordances, and affordances are different than outcomes. That's mediation. And we are going to talk about those within the next few slides. Okay. So hidden and false affordances. So the action possibility, right? Versus the perceived. It's on this axis. Okay. What this means is up in this top quadrant is going to be the false affordance because it is perceived, but the possibility of that action actually happening is low. So it's a false affordance. Okay. So it's not an actual affordance for communication, if that makes sense. Right. So this one, it's a correct rejection. It's not an affordance at all. It's not perceived and there's no action possibility. Okay. You come over here, we've got high action possibility, low perception of it being an affordance though. This is a hidden affordance. There is low perception, but it's still there. Okay. So it is an affordance and people should perceive it. And I'm talking about these in very vague terms, and that's just because it could be applied to any of the four groups that we had already talked about. And then this top quadrant over here, it is a high action possibility and highly perceived. So it is a perceived affordance. Okay. So remember this because you will see it in the future or something like it in the future. So just keep an eye on that. Wasted affordances. So this picture says, on Snapchat, I keep accidentally tapping the video call button every time. How do I disable this feature? Right? That's a wasted affordance because that we have the high possibility and perception. We can FaceTime via Snapchat now. It's not always the best quality, but we can do it. And this is a wasted affordance because it's something that people are trying to eliminate because they don't like it or they don't use it. But it is something that we could communicate with it and it could meet one of our affordance requirements, or not one, all three, to where we can communicate. And that's why it's a wasted affordance because it's something that we already have that we're not utilizing to its full potential. Okay. And then last points, affordances are merely stepping stones to help us achieve our outcomes. So mediation. So we've got this nice chart down here, Facebook messaging. We can go down to see being networked, right? So we're talking to people clear across the globe. When I was in Japan back in 2019, I could share my messages with people via Facebook because I didn't have a data plan. So I just shared my messages via Facebook whenever I was logged into Wi-Fi, right? So we can be networked. We also have social support, right? So that helps us achieve, right? The Facebook messaging is the affordance, but I mean, so is networking because we talked about that as well. But we're able to achieve our goal, right? So we're able to get social support. Asynchronicity, that's another affordance. We don't have to communicate in real time. Therefore, I can take the time to craft this perfect message for you, and I feel less stressed about it, and hopefully you would too. Okay, so affordances, it's not the same as saying, oh, I've achieved my goal. It affords me the materials, the information, everything that I need to achieve my goal. Okay. If affordances do not make sense, please don't hesitate to reach out. So let's move to domestication. And we are almost done with slides, just so you know. So with domestication, it's all about studying what the use of technology means to people, okay? So how do they use it? What are the experiences that people have with it? And what's the role that they believe it's going to play in their everyday lives, right? So how do we use technology? What experiences do we have with technology and what roles does it play for us? And this is pretty important because that can matter, that can change depending on the person that you're talking to, right? So somebody like my grandpa who somebody like my grandpa who has an iPhone but only uses it to make calls, what does that technology mean to him, right? How does he use it? He makes calls. His experiences with it, he likes making calls. Role it plays in his everyday life, it plays none unless he's making calls, right? So domestication is all about let's understand this technology and what it means to people who are using it, right? So like we probably wouldn't ask my grandfather these questions because they wouldn't make any sense to us. But if I asked you, what does your smartphone technology mean to you? We would have very different answers based on who we are because we all grew up with this technology. Maybe not iPhones, but we all grew up with the technology um, of or we all grew up with technology of some sort. Okay. So domestication, individual, relational, and social expectations change when new or landmark communication are developed. And as you can see down here, we've got letters to the original phones. Well, that one's not the original phone, of course, but the original design for phones, and then landlines when they became mainstream, and now we've got smartphones. When cell phones first came about, they were really only for the extremely wealthy, right? So, like our parents, unless we come from an extremely wealthy family, probably wouldn't have had cell phones when they very first came out. Now, they were offered to the general public afterwards, but it took a little bit. Um, I don't know if y'all remember Blackberries. They were before I mean, BlackBerry's still a company, of course, but they were before iPhones. And I remember when I got one, I was so excited. I had two separate Blackberries. I had the little one that had the keypad down here and then the screen up here, and mine was purple. And then I had the fully touchscreen one that the screen would actually click when you were texting, like it pushed in. It was crazy. Um, Sorry, try not to use that word. It was bananas. So how do all of these expectations change when our technology changes, right? So how many of you write letters to people anymore? Probably not a lot. I mean, maybe you'll send a card for Christmas or birthdays. Um, my friend and I, like I mentioned in this class, we communicate. Oh, my friend and I, we communicate via text, via FaceTime, all that stuff. But we also write each other letters and cards. And that's because we're weird. We think that it's fun to have pen pals. But that's not the mainstream anymore. Moving forward to landlines, we talked about this in class the other day. Many of us don't have landlines anymore because there's not really a need for them. When cell phones started becoming mainstream, a lot of companies had to switch what they were doing because phone companies, strictly phone companies, don't really exist anymore. It's not to say there aren't some out there, but most people don't have a landline. I mean, even my grandparents don't have a landline anymore. So, how we become domesticated and all these expectations that we have, they do change with this new technology. Um, I've talked about this in both of my classes, but your parents who have a company cell phone, that's so they can get a hold of you at any time that they want. Um, or if you work for a company where your work is your cell phone. My brother's a real estate agent in Illinois. I mean, very successful, but his work is done through his phone majority of the time. He's talking to people. He can do everything from his phone to get information. He can do everything from his phone to put in offers. Now, that's not to say that most people are calling him at 2 o'clock in the morning, but if somebody did, he'd get a message or he'd have to answer it. So our expectations also shift. Okay. And that's where we're going to stop. The next slide is the discussion prompt, and we don't need that. So let's stop sharing. Okay, cool. So those are all the slides that would have been covered this week in just one video. Work on your next research briefs. You can cover media richness. If you covered media richness in your last paper, your last research brief, do not cover it in this one. For those of you who did not, you can cover media richness. You can cover media naturalness. Anybody can do that one. Or affordances and domestication. Please stick with those three. And if you already did media richness, stick with the other two. And yeah, we will be back in action next Monday. Sorry, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday class. We'll be back in action next Monday. If you have any questions along the way, please do not hesitate to reach out. On the schedule, it says sign up for workshop time. Please disregard that. we will be just meeting as a class as a whole to talk about CMC improvement plans. So start looking at that assignment. I'm not saying starting to work on it, but start looking at it and start getting some ideas. Okay. Have a wonderful week. Stay safe, stay healthy. If you feel like you've been exposed, please contact the school and go get tested. Yeah, and I will see you next week. Okay, bye.